The fastest player on the pitch doesn't always win the foot race. Actually, scratch that. The fastest player on the pitch sometimes doesn't even come close. Because speed in football and speed in athletics are not the same thing, not even a little. An Olympic sprinter clocks 100 meters in under 10 seconds. A top professional footballer clocks, but slower than that, significantly slower. And yet, those same professional footballers, by being in exactly the right place a half second earlier than the defender, manage to appear absolutely unplayable. Which raises a question that nobody seems to ask. If raw pace doesn't define the game, what does? Pace. Pace wins games. Pace beats defenders. Pace is a thing you either have or you don't. If you believe the commentary, the entire sport runs on a single biological advantage. The man who runs fastest gets there first, and that's more or less that, except it isn't at all. Some of the greatest footballers in history were famously slow. Some of the fastest athletes to lace up football boots barely made an impact. And some of the most explosive attacking displays in World Cup history were delivered by teams that, on paper, weren't particularly quick. The answer is stranger than you think. Here's exactly how it works. Speed in football comes in 3 completely different types. Most people only know about one of them. The first type is what you already think of, physical pace, pure athletic running speed, the kind measured on a stopwatch. The second type is harder to see. It's called speed of thought. Before the ball arrives, the best players in the world have already decided what they're going to do with it. They read the pass before it's played. They see the gap before it opens. This gives them a half-second head start on everyone else. Against elite defenders, a half-second is enormous. The third type is technical speed. This is about how quickly a team moves the ball, not the players. A player who controls a pass and plays it back with one crisp touch moves the team faster than any sprinting run could. The ball travels faster than any human being. 3 types of speed. Most fans recognize one. The game actually runs on all 3 simultaneously. And here's the thing. Coaches who understand this build completely different teams from coaches who don't. Imagine you're a right winger. Your team is attacking. The conventional image is simple. Ball over the top, you accelerate, you're through on goal. The defender tries to catch you. If you're quicker, you score. If you're not, you don't. But it also requires a perfect pass, perfect timing, and perfect execution. If the defender is half a step faster, the chance is gone. Now here's the same situation, viewed differently. Instead of waiting for the ball, you start your run a half second earlier. Not because the pass is coming, but because you've already read that the pass is coming. You've watched the midfielder's body angle for the past 3 seconds. The defender is waiting to react. You're already moving when they start to react. You don't need to outrun them. You've already created the gap. That's speed of thought. It looks like pace. It functions like chess. Then there's the modern pressing system. When your team loses the ball, the instruction is press now, 4 seconds. That's the window. The entire forward line launches into an immediate coordinated sprint, surrounding the ball carrier before they can turn, pass, or think. It's not chaotic, it's organized speed. The players running fastest aren't chasing the ball, they're closing passing lanes before the ball gets there. Your center backs play 50 meters from your own goal halfway up the pitch. This compresses the space the opposition has to play in. They're cramped, they're rushing, they're panicking. Any ball played over the top leaves enormous space for a fast attacker to run into, which means your center backs now need one thing above everything else, the ability to sprint. Not sprint to the ball, sprint away from it. Modern defending is a foot race that nobody tells you about, even the goalkeeper. Modern goalkeepers now sprint well outside their penalty boxes to intercept passes played over a high defensive line. Speed has arrived at the last line of defense. This didn't start in the Premier League era, not even close. The first recorded use of pace as a deliberate tactical weapon in football comes from 1878, Welsh Cup final, Wrexham. Captain Charles Merlis withdrew a forward because he believed his remaining centre forward, John Price, was fast enough to compensate on his own. Price could outsprint the entire opposition defense alone. Merlis backed that judgment. Wrexham won. From the very first international match between England and Scotland in 1872, England held a distinct advantage in pace. English teams compensated for imprecise passing with the rare potency and great rapidity of their attacks. By 1919, Brazil had developed a Brazilian innovation, 2 or 3 players breaking away at devastating speed while everyone else held position. Speed is a disorientation tool, not a battering ram, a scalpel. By the 1924 Olympics, Uruguay arrived in Paris and stunned European audiences with lightning changes of rhythm combined with high-speed dribbling and close passing. They weren't the fastest players on the pitch in any athletic sense. They were the fastest team, a difference most observers couldn't fully articulate at the time. In 1957, writer Willie Meisel lamented that in certain footballing cultures, speed was made a fetish, reducing the sport to a panicky power game. hurried clearances, no composure, no pause. At the 1958 World Cup, Argentina realized too late that they had been playing at a significantly slower pace than the European nations. They were, in short, left behind. Meanwhile, in the Soviet Union, Valery Lobanovsky was building sides praise for playing modern football at 100 kilometers per hour, not because every player was an Olympic sprinter, but because the system itself generated speed. By 2014, Fabio Capello called it without doubt the best World Cup of all, not in terms of skill, but the sheer dizzying intensity of how rapidly matches moved. Modern strikers were logging around 85 high-velocity sprints per match, not per season, per match. Football didn't get faster because players got faster. Football got faster because coaches found ways to force the pace, tactically, physically, and psychologically. Teams don't chase speed because their players are fast. They chase speed because their opponents are slow, at least for a window of a few seconds. That window lasts roughly 4 seconds. Coaches who understand this don't think about speed as a physical attribute. They think about it as a timing attack. You exploit the chaos of transition. This is why Yogi Löw instructed his analysts to focus on what kind of sprints players were making, where on the pitch, and in which direction. The sprint that matters is not the longest sprint. It's the sprint that arrives at the right spot at the right moment. Speed in football is not about who covers the most ground. It's about who is in the right place when everyone else is still figuring out where that is. Germany, 2014 World Cup, Brazil in the semifinal. You know the result, 7-1. But the reason it happened has been misread ever since. Most people remember it as a collapse, but the mechanism was German speed. In the sweltering Brazilian heat, Germany deliberately adopted a counter-attacking approach. Absorb pressure, wait, then sprint. Brazil's attacking style left them structurally split. When they committed men forward, they left enormous spaces behind. Germany waited for those gaps and then rapidly filled them. Toni Kroos sprinted 25 yards from the halfway line to dispossess a Brazilian midfielder, exchanged 2 rapid passes with Sami Khedira, and the ball was in the net before Brazil's defense had processed what was happening. And in the final, it was Andre Schürrle, the Bundesliga's most dangerous counterattacker, whose sudden sprint down the flank delivered the cross for Mario Götze's winning goal. Germany didn't win by being the most technically gifted team. They won by understanding that speed isn't a trait, it's a system, and their system was better than everyone else's. Wind back to the 2002 World Cup, Senegal versus France, opening match of the tournament. France were the reigning world champions. This was supposed to be a formality. Senegal's manager Bruno Metsu had done his homework. He identified aging French defenders with significantly reduced recovery pace. The game plan: crowd the midfield, don't let France build, and the moment you win the ball, find El Hadji Diouf with a pass in behind the defensive line. Diouf was 21. He was electric. In the first half, Diouf received a ball into the left channel and sprinted full pace, leaving French defender Franck Leboeuf unable to recover as Diouf drove towards the byline. The cross arrived low. Papa Bouba Diop bundled it in. Senegal won 1-0. In 2014, speed was a systemic weapon. In 2002, speed was a targeted exploit. Metsu saw a specific weakness not in France's tactics, but in France's biological aging. Speed doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists relative to whoever is trying to stop it. The best teams find the matchup where pace creates an advantage the opposition genuinely cannot solve. Here's the part nobody talks about. Speed is increasingly happening behind the defense, not in front of it. For most of football's history, pace was an attacking attribute. But modern tactical systems have quietly reversed this. The high defensive line demands that center backs be fast enough to sprint 50 meters behind them. The sweeper keeper is now normal, not exotic, normal. Every sprint forward creates a space behind. Every space behind demands a sprint back. The game no longer has a slow position. Even the goalkeeper might have to outrun you. And that is a sentence that would have been incomprehensible to any football coach 50 years ago. The strongest case against everything you've just heard is this: speed breaks teams. Tactical philosopher Juan Malilo put it bluntly: the faster the ball goes, the faster it comes back. If your game is based on launching the ball upfield at maximum velocity, you will spend the second half chasing the ball yourself. You are stretched, out of shape, exposed. Willie Meisel in 1957, speed was made a fetish. The result was a panicky power game. Hurried clearances, no composure, no pause. But here's where the argument doesn't fully land. The German 2014 team wasn't reckless. They were patient, they sat back for long stretches, and then they were extremely fast for 3 seconds. Speed used intelligently is not reckless, it's the entire design. 3 things most fans get wrong about speed in football. First, that team is so fast. Usually this is wrong. What you're watching is technical speed. One touch passing, the players might not be outrunning anyone. The ball is simply moving faster than any player can physically track. One is biology, the other is craft. Second, he's too slow to play at the top level. Probably not what's actually limiting him. Philippe Lahm was, by most physical measurements, slower than many of his direct opponents. He was also consistently rated among the best fullbacks on earth. His anticipation meant he arrived at the ball before faster players who reacted a half second later. Slow feet, fast mind. David Trezeguet's father captured this principle better than most. David thinks quickly, his speed is in his head. What they do with their legs, he can do mentally in a second. Third, pace is what makes a great winger. Yes, traditionally. But the winger position has bifurcated. There are wingers who use raw pace, and there are wingers who use modulated speed. Explosive bursts followed by sudden dead stops that force the defender to break while the attacker surges again. The second type looks slower. They aren't. They're just faster in a way that only becomes apparent on a second viewing. The fans watching only for raw pace are watching roughly a third of what's actually happening. Here's the thing even football obsessives usually miss. Speed creates psychological asymmetry. Jogi Löw observed something that appears minor until you sit with it. Players feel less physical fatigue when sprinting forward to attack than when running backward to defend. Same muscles, same distance, completely different subjective experience. A team sprinting forward feels like it's winning. Perceived effort affects real performance. Players who feel better make faster decisions and execute more cleanly. The teams being chased feel the pressure. The teams doing the chasing feel the momentum. These are not metaphors. They describe real states that affect how players move, decide, and execute under pressure. You don't build a fast team just to outrun the opposition. You build a fast team to make the opposition feel slow. Heading into the 2026 World Cup, speed has never been more central to how the elite teams play. The tournament is expanding to 48 nations for the first time. More matches, more fatigue. The teams generating the most attention, those built on rapid transitions, explosive counterattacks, and pressing systems, are exactly the kind of teams this entire video has described. Teams that treat speed not as a biological lottery, but as a system they have deliberately engineered. And the players attracting the most interest combine all 3 types of speed simultaneously: physical pace, speed of thought, technical speed. The convergence of all 3 in a single player is what produces those moments, those 10 seconds of controlled chaos, where a match is decided before anyone in the stadium has processed what just happened. That is the game you're going to be watching. Now you know what to look for. Speed in football is not one thing. It is 3: physical pace, speed of thought, and technical speed. The game has always been shaped by teams and managers who understood which version of speed gave them an advantage and exploited it before their opponents caught on. From the 1878 Welsh Cup to the 7-1 in Belo Horizonte, the fundamental insight has never changed. Speed is not about running fast, it's about being in the right place at the moment when the opposition is still thinking about where the right place is. The game was always this, most people just couldn't see it. The game has not changed, you're welcome. Subscribe if you enjoyed this type of content, it means a lot.